Hey guys, it's Noah here, and today I'm going to be doing a sort of tutorial walkthrough and showcase of the Corsair Utility Engine software. Essentially what Corsair Utility Engine software is a program where you're able to control your Corsair products that have controllability, such as RGB keyboards. This is the place where you can control their lighting effects. This is the place where you can control their macros. And you pretty much, the macros are only for keyboards made by Corsair. Not much control over mouse macros, and almost no control over headphones or the Corsair RGB lighting pad. So it's all basically lighting, and then a few extra features for keyboards, obviously. So I'm doing kind of a full tour of the software here, and let's get right into it. Basically, first, if you go to the software settings, you can have this. You can see all of your devices that you have connected, or with this option here, you can select and see all of the devices that are available. Obviously, if you don't have them, you won't be able to control them, but you can kind of see what you are able to control if you get them. So basically, I'm not going to mess with the devices I don't have now. I'm going to be focusing on the keyboard, since there's the most things you can tweak with the keyboard. The Scimitar mouse made by Corsair has similar functionality of what I'm going to show you with the keyboard, where you can assign macros, because it has a bunch of macro buttons on it, but not so much their other devices, as there isn't as much control on the other devices. Switching back to my connected devices, you can see I have the keyboard. I can update the firmware for it, change the polling rate, brightness of the keys, which you can change with the brightness key on the keyboard. There's no real point in changing it through here. And the layout that I'm going to use with the keyboard, obviously US and North America. This is down here if you want the Corsair Utility Engine to run on startup of your computer. Obviously, if you want a certain lighting effect to run at startup, then you need to have this selected, and then don't worry about SDK down here. English language for me, if you speak a different language and you want the Corsair Utility Engine to tell you stuff in a different language, the language that you speak, you can select your language from the drop-down box there, and then you save your settings here when you're done. And that's something you're going to want to get used to in this software, because it will get held up if you don't save your settings. So if you want to switch to an effect after editing a certain other effect, it will make you save first, and if you try to switch, it won't let you switch until you save, or at least cancel the save. Right here you can select the update for your Corsair Utility Engine application, and mine's up to date, so right now I'm running the latest software, and that's what this video is going to be on. 2.4.66 is the version I'm running currently. So I'm going to save those settings and switch to my profiles. Essentially, you can have as many profiles as you want. I haven't reached a cap yet, and there's only so many profiles you can have. Right now, for demonstration purposes, I'm going to be focusing on this profile for YouTube. So it's just going to be a demo profile where I'm going to showcase everything that you can do. Now, right here, I'm going to select this Strafe RGB keyboard, because that's the device I'm going to be using the profile for. If you have any other devices connected, such as their mice, headphones, or the RGB mouse pad, then you can select them up here. Right now, this one's highlighted in orange, the Strafe RGB, because that's what I'm doing work on right now. But if you had your headphones plugged in and your mouse plugged in from Corsair, then you could select, say, the keyboard and the mouse, but not the headphones, if you want this stuff to be applied to those two, but not the other one. So first of all, I'm going to be showcasing the basic mode, and then I'll move to advanced mode later throughout the video. So if you're only here to learn the basics, I will give you a cutoff when I'm done teaching the basics, and if you're here to learn the advanced stuff, I will I will give you an annotation so you can skip to that, and you don't have to wait for me to show you the basic stuff if you already know basics. So we're going to go to actions first up, and the actions remain the same through advanced mode and basic mode, so it doesn't matter which mode you have on to perform certain actions. Just remember that in advanced mode, everything is switched, and you won't be able to access the same lighting effects in advanced mode. So if you have a bunch of different lighting effects in basic mode, and then you switch to advanced mode, I will demonstrate. Right now I'm just going to show you an effect here. If I switch to advanced mode, that effect is no longer there. When I switch back, it'll come back, but only the effects you have in basic mode will stay in basic mode, and the effects you have in advanced mode will stay in advanced mode, and at no time will they cross over. while you have. So if I create an action here and save it, changing to advanced mode will leave that action there. So it does not do it for lighting effects. It will not switch over for lighting effects, but for actions, since they are the same, it will switch over. So no need to worry about that there. There's essentially a bunch of different kinds of actions you can create. Macro is the most complicated, and I will show you what you do there. So for macro, basically that's if you want to initiate a complicated key string. The first thing that comes to my mind is if you want to save a fatality in Mortal Kombat, complicated fatality that takes a while to get right, then you could record yourself doing the macro, pressing the keys that are required to perform that fatality. That way when you're in game, you can press a key that you have it programmed to. So say if I wanted to perform a certain fatality, I can map it to the 7 key here. So say the fatality is WERT. It will save the time that I press it, the time that I release it, and the key that's pressed and released. So it will save pretty much exactly how you press and release it, depending on what the settings you have selected here. So if I wanted to perform that fatality and I just save it to the 7 key, and in game when I need to perform it, I'd get into position, hit the 7 key, and it would execute the macro at the exact time and order that I executed it myself. So that's a really neat feature, especially if there's complicated key strings that you need to do, not necessarily in a game, but in other software where keystrokes are necessary, such as coding. So essentially it will record everything you have selected here. So if you wanted to record the delay between when you press a certain key and release it, then you will have that checked. If you don't want it to record the delay, then it will just initiate the key string in the order that you pressed it. It will record keyboard defense. If you don't have that selected, basically nothing will happen. It will only record this other stuff. But if you have that not selected, then it won't record any presses of the keys. As you can see here, it records nothing. But if you have mouse clicks selected, then it will record the clicks of the mouse. So right click, left click, any buttons on the mouse, it should record. And then this one is kind of a bad feature in my opinion. It's recording the mouse movement. Luckily you can deselect it, because I think it just crowds up this macro box. Because as you can see here, if I have it selected and I just move the mouse, it will record tons of actions from where I move the mouse. So if you need the mouse to move a certain way in a certain program for some reason, then that might be good, but it records a ton of actions and would be a mess to sort through yourself if you are recording the mouse movement. So I just kind of think that's pointless in my opinion. But that's about it for macro. You can name it up here as you can with any of the profiles showcased throughout here. It has an option to name it whatever you want, and the name will appear there. Next up is text. Not really sure why you'd want this. Basically, if you want the 7 key to say hi YouTube every time you press it, then when you hit the 7 key, that's what it'll say right here. Kind of pointless in my opinion. If you need to like copy and paste something a bunch of times, I guess it makes sense, but would, in my opinion, it'd just be easier to hit copy and paste. But nonetheless, it's an option in the software. You can remap keys here so that if you're using a different keyboard layout, and this is kind of cool, if you don't use the QWERTY layout for your keyboard, as is the most common, then you can remap all of the keys to your liking. What would kind of get annoying here is you need to remap each one of these. So say I wanted to remap the A key to the H key, then it would remap that. It wouldn't remap anything else. It remaps one key. So you, essentially, if you wanted to remap all of the letter keys, you would have 26 actions here for each one of the letters in the English language, that is. But kind of a cool feature if you wanted to use a different keyboard layout than that of the most common QWERTY. So if you use a different keyboard layout, then that's kind of a cool option for you. This is pretty much useless on my keyboard. It's just the media keys. If you want to have, if you wanted to dedicate your own media keys on your keyboard, obviously it's useless for me because my keyboard does have media keys. So rededicating them would make no sense in my opinion. But I guess if you have a Corsair keyboard that doesn't have dedicated media keys, then this would be a viable option. Here's a timer. Basically, it will just basically act as a stopwatch when you press a certain key, and kind of cool if you're doing a speed run, maybe, I guess. Kind of useless in my opinion, but I guess there's people out there that might use it. Then you can disable a certain key, like say if I didn't want to use an A key for some reason, then I would select that key, and now I can't press the A key on this keyboard as long as this action is viable. And then you can also set it to disable if the lock is on. So the Windows lock button is right here, and if I turn that on, now the A key is disabled, and when I turn it off, the A key is re-enabled. Kind of useless as well in my opinion. I'd recommend really not messing with this because it can make your keyboard lag a bunch and just screw you over. Basically, it will allow you to switch profiles at the press of a key. I think that's not a really good idea in my opinion. So for profile switching, I'd recommend just going into the Q software yourself and just clicking on the profile you want selected. Don't really see a point in trying to map it to a key and going with the lag that it's going to cause. Kind of pointless. Anyways, that's about it for the actions. Now I'm going to be moving on to the lighting effects. But before I do that, I did skip something earlier, and that was for the profile settings. If you want to create a new profile, you just drop down this tab thing right here. You can create a profile, copy a profile. So if you wanted to make a copy of a profile and then edit it separately, it would make a copy. If you wanted to import or export a profile, say from a flash drive to take it to a friend's house or something of the sort, and then save the static lighting and performance to your keyboard. So essentially what this does is it saves the static lighting performance of so if you don't have Q software on somebody's computer and you plug the keyboard in, basically it will just light up the lights up here and none of the lights here, because there's no profile to tell it to use on a certain keyboard. So if you wanted to just go to the lighting effects here and create a static color right here of white, now if I select all the keys on the keyboard, it has a static color of white, and what this does is it saves that static color to the keyboard so that whenever you plug it into a device that doesn't have Q running, it will run just this basic white profile or blue profile or whatever you set it to. It will not save any advanced color schemes. It will only save one static color for all the keys you have selected, and that is it. Kind of a cool feature if you just want white backlighting on a computer that doesn't have Q on it. So neat little feature by Corsair there. And then you can edit profile, just basically the name and some other stuff that you might find useful, maybe not. Basically, you can link it to a program. This is extremely useful if you want a certain lighting profile or action profile to launch with another program. Say you need a lighting profile to launch with Microsoft Word so that you can, see the keys better or have certain actions running that help you with Microsoft Word. Basically, you can link this profile to an application. And then for custom profile icon, you can select an image to be the icon. It'll look like this up here. Or background image, basically it'll choose the background of your profile. It'll just be behind the keyboard here, kind of like this, as you can see. And yeah, that's about it for the editing. And then there's this tabs transparency, which just makes the tabs transparent or not, and how transparent you want them. And the blur basically just slightly blurs the image so that it's not as distracting. Kind of cool to customize your profiles that a little bit more. Anyways, now for real on to the lighting. Basic lighting, that is. Like I said before, it will not change when you switch to advanced. It will only stay in the basic. Basically what will happen here is you can select a bunch of predefined effects. So there's a spiral rainbow effects. You can select the speed and the direction, and for most of these they all have speed and directions. I will specify if there's any extra options, but rainbow wave, speed, direction, rain, basically it'll just rain. You can have the speed, and you can have it alternate between certain colors. And then if we go to color shift, it'll basically just shift between a bunch of different colors, random colors that is, or you can have it alternate between colors of your choice. Speed, you can define the speed as well. Onto the color pulse. Don't really like this. It's basically just pulsates a color, random color, or alternating colors as before. Wave, which basically just wave of random color or alternating color with the direction selection and speed selection. And then you can have type lighting, which basically just lights up a color of a key you press. As you can see here, you can have it alternate random colors and duration of the lighting that lasts after you press the key. And then you have ripple colors, which is kind of the coolest basic feature, which basically it'll ripple when you press the key, and you can define the speed and the color for that as well. Playback visualizer is kind of pointless. Never really had this work for me. Essentially what it's supposed to do is like take the sound on your computer or microphone or something and translate it to colors. Never really worked for me, so I can't really show you that. And microphone visualizer is essentially the same thing. So basically useless to me. And then there's a static color down here, which is a single color. Kind of the same as actually, excuse me, this is the first time I've seen static color. But yeah, you just select a single color, and that's what it'll be on the keys that you select. If you want to select an extra key, you can hit the control key, and then you can grab another key or take away another key to your liking. And then you can select opacity for most of these too as well, so you can see how bright you need it. And lighting link is essentially if you have another Corsair device and you want the lighting to be synchronized between those two. Finally, in the basic mode, we have performance. And it's kind of just a small little tab here where you can select what Windows lock controls, if it disables Windows key, Shift tab, Alt F4, Alt tab for any reason if you don't want those enabled when you hit the Windows lock key up there. And then you can have the lock indicator lights. Right now the default's blue for on and then red for off, and then the brightness indicator default is just white. And then the side lights over here are basically just a strip of white light that displays, and you cannot change the color of those. So you can either enable them or disable them here to your liking. And yeah, that's about it for the basic mode, guys. So if that's all you wanted to see was just a tour of the basic mode, then you can leave the video now. But if you want a tour of the advanced mode, then stay tuned. Alright guys, I'm back, and right now I'm going to be doing the advanced lighting effects. Like mentioned before, the actions remain the same through advanced or basic mode, so no need to worry about that there. They will transfer over fine. So essentially this last part of the video is just going to be about the advanced lighting effects. And there is a lot to do with the advanced lighting effects. So right now this is basic mode, and we're going to be switching over to advanced with this switch right up here at the top. And if you don't have anything saved, it'll ask you to save. I'm not going to save it right now because this is just for YouTube purposes. So switching over to advanced, now we have a lot more options under the create a lighting effects. And if I didn't mention this before, under the lighting tab you can create an effect, copy an effect, import from your library of effects, save to a library of effects. So if you want like a certain amount, but if you want a bunch of different effects that you created yourself, you can save them to your library and use them in any other profile you have for Q. You can view all effects or just view the single one if you have like a ton of effects here and it's just getting too crowded. Search for effects if you have too many and you need to find a certain one by a certain name, and delete an effect. So right here we're going to create an effect so I can show you how to get this started. Static color, much like the static before, does exactly what it says. You highlight all the keys that you want this color to be applied to, and it will be that color. Nothing complicated there. And it's cool that this is an advanced mode so that you can make all the keys a bunch of different colors, or a single color I should say, so that you can have a background for any other lighting effects. So right now I'm going to make this white, and I will show you why in a second. I'm going to save it and create a new effect so I can show you the other effects. So right now I just created an effect on top of an effect, and essentially I have my original static white lighting effect, which the base is going to be white. Now anything I create on this one that I just created is going to be on top of this effect. If I were to drag this down here, it would reverse the order. So if you have, say, pretty much any effect I put on here now will not affect what you see on the keyboard because of the fact that I placed the first static above this. So now if I select these, it's not going to matter what I select. It won't you won't see anything on the keyboard because this static profile is on top of it, and you only see things layered on top of each other. So if I move this back down, you will see, after I save it of course, if you move this back down, you will see the stuff that I selected with the second profile. So it all builds off of each other, and you can't start building something, like you can't build an effect that covers all of the keys on top, otherwise it will cover up all the other effects beneath it, if that makes sense. So you can layer effects like this. As you can see, these are the keys I have selected for this effect, but under that are the keys that I have selected for the previous static effect, and that same type of rule works out with all of the effects used. Now we're going to move on to gradient effect, which is probably the jack of all trades for this keyboard, or for this lighting profile software. So essentially what it allows you to do is create frames, and the frames will be played throughout a certain amount of time. So right now it defaults to 10 seconds. I'm going to set it to 5 so that you can see things happening before your eyes faster. And essentially you need 2 keyframes to make a gradient, and what this will do is all of the keys you have selected for the gradient will do the gradient colors in the time provided. So essentially if I do this, it will become dimmer, and you can only see it really happening for this key up here because of the previous layer beneath it, like mentioned before. If I were to turn that off, after I save of course, if I were to turn that off, you can see the gradient effect only, and these switches on the side show all of the effects. And you basically, if you want to hide an effect for a second so you can see what one's doing, then you can just switch it off really quickly. I believe the same goes for the basic mode, so you can switch off effects in basic as well. But as you can see now it's filling up the entire keyboard with the gradient effect. But if I switch this on, then it gets overruled by the effect beneath it. So the gradient effect, if I wanted to take one of these frames and make them, say, blue, now it's going to fade from white to blue, but not only is it going to fade from white to blue, it's going to become dimmer. So essentially this palette right here is going to be your time frame. It's going to get from point A to point B, C, however many of these points you add, and then once it hits this final point here, once it hits the end point, it will jump back to the first point. So something important to remember here is if you want it to loop seamlessly, you're going to need to have the first point the exact same color as the final point and the exact same brightness. Speaking of brightness, if you want a certain brightness, you can drag this down. So if you say wanted it to dim, now you'll see it will become blue, and then will dim, and then will finally become, actually you won't really see it unless I switch this effect off. But as you can see, it starts with white, and then it goes to blue, and then it goes to dim, and then it jumps back to white. So the only way you're going to get it to loop seamlessly is if you have the end color and the beginning color the same color. I'm just going to approximate here. I'm not going to use the exact same color. But now you're going to see that it does it a lot more seamlessly. It doesn't jump as much as before, and it looks a lot better. And like I said, this is like the jack of all trades effect. You can use it for so many different types of things. So a lot more things than you'd think you would be able to use it for. So if we delete some of these keyframes here, I'm just going to leave 4. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set the first one to red, set the second one to green, third one's already blue, and then I'm going to set the final one back to red. That way it will loop seamlessly. So now you can see it's going to go through the rainbow in the time frame. My time frame is 5 seconds, so it's going to go through that rainbow in 5 seconds. As you can see, that's how you get basically a color fade without any jumpiness that you get in the basic effect, because the basic color fade will just like switch between colors. It won't really fade between them like this effect will, but this is the kind of effect you'd want if you want to make a fade between a bunch of different colors and make it seamless. And then if we save this real quick, if we switch back the static color, since this one covers all of the keys, you will not see any of that static color. You won't see it anywhere because it's being overruled by this one above it. But if I were to select just the spacebar for my color, now you can see the spacebar is changing color, but everything else is remaining the same. If I wanted the W key, hold Control and the spacebar, now those keys are the ones changing with the gradient, and the rest of the keys will be the static color that I have before. But the keys that I've selected for my gradient profile will do the gradient.
So I'm switch this off again for a second. If you want to do a type, color fade that you do yourself, like say you want, let's delete all these real quick. Say you want it to turn white when you press the key. Put that right there. I might need to switch these. So yeah. If you want it to fade a color when you press the key, you can select how long it stays lit, and then you go the start option you do on key press. So now, since I have the G key selected, and just for the video's purpose, I'm going to select all of these. Can't really select this because it's not a key, but now all of these keys are selected. They will all do this gradient, and the gradient, basically what I'm going to have it do is, I'm going to switch this actually so this looks like a better demonstration. When I press a key, it will turn red, and then it will become more dim throughout the 3-second time limit, and eventually fade to white and be totally off. And you don't want it to repeat. So basically, if I do this now, if I leave this as it is, when I press a key, it will do all of the keys like this, and it's going to do the entire keyboard. Basically, you press one key, it'll do the entire keyboard, and it will not stop because the stop option is set to never. So you want it to be set to after one time. So basically, now it's only going to do that fade after one key press. So I press the H key, the entire keyboard is going to fade because it's all using this gradient effect and all the keys are selected. But if I click play on press key, now it will only do the fade on a key that I press. So I click the H key, and now it'll do that gradient fade throughout the 3 seconds. So that's probably like the best way if you want to do a fade. Now another cool thing you can do is you can do an RGB fade, where it'll go from red to green. I'm just going to approximate the colors here, guys, to blue. And this is really cool looking. Basically, now it's going to fade between red, green, and blue for any one of these keys pressed, and then it'll fade off. Really neat, actually. You can see them all fading. Just a really cool, like I said, jack of all trades effect. You can do so many different effects with gradient. There's probably going to be some ones that I missed for this video's purposes, but literally the gradient can be used for so many different effects. So the next effect up is the ripple effect. And so basically we're going to select all the keys for this, and what it's going to do is it's going to have a ripple effect repeat every 5 seconds this time. And if you have all the keys selected, it will ripple from the middle, and it'll start with the profile as of now and stop never. And so it's going to be doing this ripple, and same thing with the gradient. You can select the different keys, and each key you can make however you want. So if we do this, we'll get half of the middle of the ripple to be faded. As you can see, it looks kind of cool actually, because the middle of the ripple is faded, but the ends are still full brightness. You can also do an RGB ripple, which in my opinion looks pretty sick. As you can see here, save that. Now you have a really cool rainbow ripple type thing. You can select how long the tail is, so if you want the tail to be really long, you can do 10 lights. Now the tail is huge. Then you can do how fast it goes, so if I want to do 50 lights a second, it's a really fast rainbow. Just like that. Almost too fast to even see. So if we set it 30 lights a second, then now it's a little bit slower. And so that's basically if you want it to just ripple from the center of your keyboard periodically by this time scale. If you want it to do a key on a key press, basically now it'll do that for whatever key you press. So I press the K key, it's going to do it on K. Press the E key, or sorry, if you press the key, it will not stop repeating. So you want it to not repeat after one time. So after one time, it'll stop doing this repeat. So now hit K, it'll do a ripple from the middle, and then it'll stop because it's only supposed to do it one time. If you want it to play from the pressed key, now it'll do it on whatever key you press, where you press it. So I press the 8 key, now it's going to ripple from the 8 key. Press the Q key, it's going to ripple from the Q key. So press a bunch of keys, it'll ripple all over the place. Pretty cool. I accidentally selected 2 times, so make that 1 time. And you can have it so that it only works on the key release. Now if I press the J key, it'll ripple, but if I press the J key and then cut it off, it'll stop the ripple, like that. Or it will keep rippling until I press the key again. So now you can see I pressed it on the J key, and it will continuously ripple off of the J key until I hit the J key again. Then it will stop. So lots of customization options here for the ripple key, or for the ripple setting. Solid is essentially the same as the as static, except you can have it like strobe sort of between two different colors. So if you want it to be solid but change colors, it will not change like a gradient, but it will change like a it'll flash between those two colors, and it won't do it smoothly like a gradient. So we have all of them selected here. If we set it to run with the profile and never stop, now it's going to just every 3 seconds it will change between red and green. Kind of cool. So yeah, it'll change between red and green here, or if you wanted to make colors your own, add another color, red, green, blue, however many you want, whatever you want to do, you can do it with this solid option. Select these. And so yeah, kind of just a more advanced version of the static option. And finally on the options is the wave, which this one has pretty much the most customizability. It has the same feature as the gradient, where you can select the gradient for the wave. Right now I have all keys selected, so it's going to wave throughout all the keys. The default, it'll wave to the right, but you can set it by however many degrees you want. So if you want it to wave up, you can do it by 90 degrees. And I'm going to change the time frame here so you can see it a little bit better. So yeah, now every 5 seconds there will be a wave. Set to 9 degrees, so now you can see it's at a slight slant, and you can pretty much put it at any degree number you want, and it'll go at whatever degree that is, which is kind of cool if you want it to wave a certain particular way at like an odd angle or some sort. You can select the velocity just like before, so you can make it go really fast if you want, just like that. You can select the tail, so if you want it to be like 20 lights long, then now the wave will be huge. Pretty cool. And then you can have two sides, which basically it will wave from the middle and it will wave outwards. So if you want to do like say 35 degrees, now it's going to wave just like that. Pretty cool. And then same options as before, you can have it wave on a key press, and you can have it from the key pressed. So now I press the H key, it's going to wave from the H key. Press the E key, it's going to wave from the E key. 9 key, it's going to wave from there. Just really cool. Right now it's set to stop never, so it's going to repeat all that stuff until I hit 1. There we go. Now it'll only do the wave once for each key. So kind of cool actually. So yeah, a lot of options here you can play around with in the wave, just like before with all the other ones. And that is about it, guys. That was a crazy amount of stuff. Thank you for watching. If you've made it this far, if you like this video, leave a like, or if it helped you, leave a like. If you have any questions about Q software or any one of my other videos, you can go ahead and leave that question down in the comments section. And subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this one, or like my content in general. But like I said, that's about it. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.